right, so today we are just doing the final service on the 1984 300 SD. This car is done and ready to go, you guys. Took it out for the test drive. Drives fantastic. Everything works great as expected. So now I want to do a final fluid change, filters, valve adjustment. I want to do all the final stuff before it leaves the shop. So what we have here, let's see, here is our power steering fluid filter. We have our new valve cover gasket. There's the main fuel filter. Let's see, here is a new pre-fuel filter. Here is the main oil filter. And this is a new Bosch primer pump, because this car still has the original primer pump on it, and it's not actually causing any problems, but those have been known to leak. You'll start using them and they'll start leaking. So I'm going to change that primer pump. And also right here, this is just a little small item I found. That is a antenna grommet, because I noticed this antenna grommet right there has a small crack in it. There we go. Started to rip apart right there. So we're going to replace that antenna grommet. And like I said, we're on like the final little nitpicky details. And these are some of the rubber air cleaner housing mounts. So I think I already changed those, so I'm going to double check. And so we're going to go ahead and get started. I've got the oil filter cap off. There's the oil filter. I want to pop all this valve linkage off, get the valve cover off. And here we can actually, I've started draining the power steering fluid. And we can see that filter. That's an old filter. Let's see what that thing looks like, because we definitely want to replace the filter. Let's get this guy out of here. Oh, actually, that one doesn't look too bad at all. That's good. That means the vehicle is being well maintained. When they haven't been changed in a long time, they'll just be black. So let's show you the new power steering filter, and you'll see the difference. And you notice I use all man stuff. I just really like them. There you go. There is a new filter. So you can see the difference in color. And of course there's fluid all up in there. But so I need to pop one of these lines loose, drain out all the power steering fluid. And guys, you can do that easily by popping the line loose, cranking the car for a few seconds, and it squirts it all out into a bucket. Sometimes it can be messy, but it's pretty easy to do. Also, we want to flush the radiator and change the coolant. So basically just a full service, and then I will officially be done with this car. So I'll show I don't want to show doing the oil change and all that. That's kind of boring. But what I do want to show is when I have the valve cover off, show the health of the timing chain. And when I'm doing the valve adjustment, just to show that the timing chain is still tight and in good condition. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, guys, for the rear differential service, you always want to make sure you can get the fill plug out before you remove the drain plug. There we go. That fill plug came out, no problem. Nothing fancy. All right. That looks pretty good. That's definitely been changed once before. It's not in terrible condition. That's good. So we'll go ahead and let this drain out, and then we'll fill it back up. All right, guys, to refill the diff, we just pump it in there until we actually see it come out of the fill hole. All right, there we go. That's full. There we go. That's it. Okay, guys, when you're refilling the power steering fluid, you want to use Dex Merc. Let's see, this is Dexron 3. It's automatic transmission fluid. That's what works in these cars. Let's go ahead and get this filled up. And I'll have to bleed the air out of the system. You can do that by you lift the front end off the ground and then turn the wheels back and forth several times, and it'll purge the air bubbles out of the system as it flows back down into the pump. So, and when you're changing the oil, of course, you always want to put a new copper crush washer on your oil pan bolt, and these come with the man filters. So you don't. All right, we got our gasket, fresh gasket, man filter. And you only want to torque these down to like 10 foot-pounds or so. You don't want to crank these down because these are studs and you will pull out, if you're not careful, you'll pull out the studs if you try to over-torque them. So 10 foot-pounds. One snug turn. Watch this. Ready? That's it. That is tight enough. And guys, I don't get into debates about oil or what to use. I just use Rotella heavy duty diesel engine oil, 15W40. Been using this stuff for 15 years or maybe 12 years. And it's just good stuff. It's a little more expensive, but it's good. Now, guys, you can go to Walmart. You can get the Super Tech or whatever their brand is, 15W40. That's going to do the same thing. If you change your oil every 3,000 miles, you're going to be fine. These things take about 2 gallons or 8 quarts. So what I like to do is go ahead and fill it up with like a gallon, 1.75 gallons, then crank it up, let it circulate through the engine, and then let it settle down, and then I top it off with the final little bit. Alright, this is your basic maintenance. We're going to remove the air filter housing here, and we'll inspect the rubber bushing mounts for the housing. I can tell they're good, but we're going to look at this anyway, and then we're going to change the air filter. Then we'll pop the valve cover and do a valve adjustment. This piece right here just pops off. You just turn it up like that. All right, the reason they're tight is because it has a little lip right here. It's that little lip, and that'll just kind of press in hard against there. But anyway, this filter is extremely clean. We can tell that this car has definitely been maintained. That filter is actually looks new. Let's go look at one of our other filters. There we go. This is a new filter out of the box. You can see there's just a little bit of age showing on this one, but it is extremely clean. It's not black. So we'll go ahead and pop a new filter in here. But I'll show you how to take off the air filter housing and check the rubber mounts. See that screw right there? That's for the turbo air intake. Here's the top tube. There's a bottom tube right there. There you go. See right there. We just want to unscrew that a little bit and loosen it up. And when we loosen it up, then we can undo the 10 millimeters right in here and then lift that up and slide it off. 3 10 millimeter nuts in here. Once those are out, see this accordion tube right here? That's the air intake. It gets air from the intake snout right there, and it goes up into the air filter. And that you simply just compress and pull off. It's just an accordion. Now that we have everything disconnected, we loosened this and took our bolts out of there. We can just lift that up, slides right out. I'll show you where this was connected. There you go. Here's your 3 mounts. And I've already replaced these on this car, but we're just going over it and showing you guys that it was done because I did not record this part. So those are good. Those are new mounts. Those mounts just screw in. You can unscrew them and you can screw them back in. All right, so next thing we want to start on is removing this valve cover. So first thing we want to do is start popping all these arms loose. And you can just take a screwdriver. Let's see, we're going to pop this one loose right here. All right, that's the cruise control. We'll just swing that over, set that out of the way. And we're going to disconnect this one right here. This is connects to the injection pump. All right, we'll lay that one out of the way. Now we're going to want to disconnect this throttle bracket that goes all the way back to the firewall. And to do that, there's a couple of clips here. These clips are very small. It is easy to drop them. And there we go. There's one of them. We'll just set these over here. Now right here we have a little E-clip. There we go. And I always keep extra ones on the shelf because these are so easy to drop. And when you drop them down there, they're pretty much gone. So there's the E-clip we remove. And once we do that, we're going to disconnect our upper linkage right here. And basically use a flathead screwdriver, like a big one, and you just stick it in there and twist. And these are little ball sockets. They just pop right off. There we go. Those are disconnected. And we want to disconnect our vacuum lines. Now, the lines are in the top holes here. We see a clear, black, clear. Black is in the middle, and they're along the top holes. So we'll just pull those out. You can just pull those right out of there, like that. And those are disconnected. Now, let's get this guy out of here. There's a washer and a little nylon bushing right there. We just want to pop off. There we go. Like that. All right, there we go. Now that throttle linkage is disconnected. And so basically this whole valve cover assembly can be lifted out now, and we'll leave all this connected on the top. Now, right over here, this line right here goes to our, I think that's probably the coolant sensor. There we go. This little sensor plug right here, we can just pop off and then get that out. All right, now that all that is disconnected, we can lift this whole valve cover out of the car with all that throttle linkage attached to the top. And what helps, right here, you see our cruise control? That is, this little bracket is in the way, and it makes it a little tricky sometimes to get the valve cover off. So if you're having, especially when you're reinstalling it, so if you have problems, you can actually, there's 3 10mm bolts on here, and you can just move this cruise control module out of the way, and that makes it much easier. So let's go ahead and get our 13mm and undo the 4 valve cover bolts and get this valve cover out of the car. That's the Batten cable. That helps transmission shifting. There we go. To get this out, you just pop a little ball off the top. Which can be a little tricky. There we go. and then you push the tabs in on the side of the Batten cable. There we go. Hopefully you guys saw that. And it will just pull through there. All right, here we go. See how it just pulls through there, and we'll just set that out of the way. And nothing else needs to be disconnected. So, there we go. Let's record from right there. There we go. See if we can get this thing off of here. All right, guys, that is it. So we'll set this aside. Removing it's easy. It's putting it back on that can be a bitch. All right, so the first thing we want to check, we look at our cam lobes. Wow, look how clean these are. No marks or scratches. Look at that metal. Very, very good condition. Those are beautiful condition. Back here, look at that. No scoring. There's the cam lobes. Oops. There's the rocker arm, and that cam lobe goes around, hits the rocker arm, and there's the valve stem and the spring below it. Show you from the other side. There you go. See all our valve stems? And the cam will turn, hit the rocker, push down the valve, and let in fresh air or let air come out. And then, of course, there's the injectors there that inject the fuel. All right, so here's our timing chain. Oh man, look how tight that is. There's literally no play whatsoever in that timing chain. And right there, we see the timing chain tensioner, that little metal stopper coming in there. You can see I'll move it. See that? That puts tension on the timing chain. Excellent condition. So this engine is beautiful in here. Very, very nice. All right, so let's go ahead and start the valve adjustment. Now to do a valve adjustment on one of these cars, your instructions are right here. It says, okay, valve lash at water temperature below 30 degrees Celsius. You always do it with the engine cold. So below 30 degrees Celsius. The intake is 0.10 millimeters. The exhaust is 0.35 millimeters. They also give you the hot setting. Valve lash at water temperature above 45 degrees. Intake is 0.15 millimeters. Exhaust is 0.40 millimeters. It looks like it's rubbed off a little there. But these are the set. Yep. Here's what we use. Cold lash, 0.10 millimeters. And exhaust, 0.35 millimeters. So let's go ahead and get our feeler gauges, and we'll do a valve adjustment on this engine. All right, so we're going to start on the exhaust valve. And you can see right here, exhaust is number 1. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 2 per cylinder, and exhaust intake. And there's 5 cylinders, 2 per cylinder. So here you want the exhaust cam lobe pointed vertically. So the rocker, let me move those out of the way. So the rocker is right there on the base of the cam lobe. And then we take our feeler gauge. We know the exhaust is 0.35 millimeters according to Mercedes exhaust, 0.35 millimeters. So we grab our feeler gauge here. See if you guys can see this. There we go, 0.35 millimeters or 14 thousandths. And you want to see if that fits in there. We can see it's a little tight. So we need to loosen that valve and get a little more clearance. Now I'm just going to show how to do this on one of them. I'm not going to record the entire valve adjustment because that is a lot of moving of the camera and it's extremely time consuming. You can see just over the top of the cruise control, you can make out the adjustment nut. There's a lock nut and a set nut. Next to it, if you look next to it, you can see the other one right here. Let's see, yep. So I'm going to point to the other one. The silver colored one is the like the set nut, and the bottom one, there's a little black or dark colored one below it. That's the lock nut. So we're going to go back to number 1, and we want to get our valve adjustment wrenches set on there. You notice these wrenches are curved different ways. And the different ways allow you to get it. There we go. All right, so we're going to break that one loose. And then we're just going to tighten down the top one a little bit. All right, that might have made the adjustment. So I'm going to go back over here with the feeler gauge. All right, still a little tight. There we go. And this time I'm going to turn our set screw clockwise and tighten it down a little bit. There we go. All right, I'm going to see how that setting is. You get the feel for this when you're doing it, guys. It's you can't really explain. There's 2 screws. You can see there's the top of one, and right below it is another one. And you move the top one up and down, and you move the bottom one up and down. So basically, if you want to increase the clearance, you screw the bottom one down and screw the top one down, and that leaves a gap at the top. And if the gap at the top is right, you hold the top one still and you raise the bottom one up, and it presses up against the top one and locks it in place. That's the best description I can give you. Okay, there we go. That is a smooth. Let me show you what that looks like. You want just a slight bit of drag. So we're going to stick that feeler gauge in there and see I have to just barely push. And now we have 14 thousandths or 0.35 millimeter clearance between the base of the rocker and the base of the cam lobe and the rocker arm. Guys, so that is how you adjust it. So that one's adjusted. So now we want to lock it in place, and we're done with that one. So to lock it in place, I'm going to hold the top one still, and I'm going to screw the bottom one counterclockwise so it's going to bump up against the top one. There we go. I rose it up against to lock it in place. And now we're going to confirm our setting. All right, then we want to confirm our setting, and there we go. That is a perfect valve lash for the exhaust lobe. So now we're going to go, we'll rotate the engine each time to get each cam lobe up, and we'll go all the way down the camshaft and do the remaining 9. And then we'll throw a new valve gasket on the valve cover. We'll put a new gasket on there and throw it back on the engine. All right, here's a little printout I got from Kent Bergsman years ago, and we can see he just did a picture. Here's a 5-cylinder diesel, the 617. Here's for if you have a 240D. So we know we just completed adjustment on number 1. So I'll put a check mark and know that I'm done. And then we're going to go to the intake, which is valve number 2. So it goes exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake, intake exhaust, exhaust intake. And we know here, since this is an intake, we know the measurement is 0.10 millimeters or 4 thousandths in SAE. So I'll just check off as I go, and then we'll be done with the process. And once you've done this a few times, you get pretty good at it. It takes about 45 minutes to an hour. If usually you only have to adjust maybe maybe half of them, and the other half are usually in spec. All right, guys, we have the valve cover back on the engine, and we've torqued down our 4 bolts. There's the old gasket. That's trash now. We got a new gasket on there. Here we can see the new valve cover gasket. Now we want to lubricate the throttle linkage with ATF fluid and then reinstall our air filter housing. So lubricating the linkage is pretty straightforward. I just use ATF fluid in a little syringe, and you just squirt a little in the linkage, and then we'll swing it over here and we'll pop it back on. And put a little on this one. There we go. It doesn't take much. You just want a little on there, and then pop everything back together. So some of the linkage is harder to get on than others, and in that case you just use a little channel lock. So let's go ahead and pull these up. And this one we'll just squirt a little in here. All right, yeah, that one's a little tougher. So we'll grab our channel locks, clip it on there. Oh, there we go. Look how smooth that operates now. Very nice. Now we have one more. Here's the injector linkage down here. All right, yeah, hopefully you guys can see that. And then lubricating everything makes it move very smoothly. Now let's reconnect our vacuum lines. Remember, we had white, black, white, and all along the top rows. And then we'll take our plug right over here. We'll plug it back in. All right, the Batten cable adjustment, you basically want about 1 millimeter of play, and it has that perfect. We don't need to make an adjustment there. Very nice. And that is a serviced valve adjustment and lubrication of throttle linkage. Let's now right there, you can barely see it. That's our original primer pump. So we want to go ahead and unscrew that, and we want to install our updated replacement Bosch primer pump. There's nothing wrong with that one. It's not leaking yet, but those are prone to leaking, and you'll start getting diesel dripping down. So we're going to go ahead and get that one out of here. There's really no elegant way to remove the old filter, the old primer pump. So what you got to do is get some vice grips on there. Just grip it around the base and then turn it. That's how you get it off. There we go. There we go. You can barely see right back in there. I'm unscrewing. That's a primer pump, and I'm unscrewing it from the lift pump. The lift pump is what lifts diesel from the tank into the injection pump. And here's our old primer pump. And what's important too is to remove the old crush washer. See it right there? I'm going to get a little pick and get that one off of there and put a fresh one on there. All right, there's that little crush washer, and we want to replace that when we put on our new primer pump. So the new primer pump comes with a crush washer. See, it's on there. So we'll screw this in by hand, and then we'll tighten it with a crow's foot. All right, here's how you tighten one of these. Once you have it in there by hand, you have what's called a crow's foot. And a crow's foot allows you to come over here from the side and then put your wrench down from the top and turn it to tighten it. So that's what we're going to do right now. Right down here. And there we go. There we go. That is now tight. And I'll wipe off some of the diesel right there. And then, of course, we'll check for leaks. All right, next we're going to change our fuel filters. We have our main fuel filter here. You can see There we go. It's that canister filter right here. And then our pre-fuel filter is right down there. We're going to change our pre-fuel filter, which goes into that primer pump. Next to the primer pump, the fuel comes in there and then comes out right there. Might have to go grab my socket. I just had a wrench here handy with me, so there we go. So that just screws loose, and then you can actually turn the filter. We're going to pull it out from below. And the trick is when you replace the filter, there we go. When you replace the filter, now we're going to get diesel everywhere when we pull this off, but you want to fill up the fresh filter. You want to make sure you fill it with fresh diesel. And we actually have fresh diesel in this vehicle. So I'm going to pour the diesel from this filter. Here we go. Here's our new filter. Here's the old filter. And the easy way to do this, pour the diesel from one into the other. That way there will be no air bubbles in the system when you go to fill it, when you go to crank it, and it'll be easy to crank. And you can't get all the diesel out of it. So I'm going to go ahead and grab my extra diesel here. All right, that thing's full. We'll just clean up our mess here. And now this, see how it's full all the way to the top with diesel? That's how you want to reinstall them, because there's no air bubbles in there. Otherwise, it'll be hard to start and you'll have to purge the air out of your lines. So to put that back in there, and yes, you spilled diesel in this process, but that's okay. No one ever has seen a clean diesel engine. All right, we're going to just slide it right under there. There we go. Right up to our bolt there. And there you go. Screw our bolt back into it. There we go. All right, now let's just wipe everything down, because during that process you inevitably spill diesel everywhere. Not a big deal, it won't hurt anything. All right, so we have the main filter changed. Now, this is the filter you want to carry in your glove box. This is the one that when it clogs up and you're driving down the interstate, all of a sudden you'll be going like 40 miles an hour. And you're like, why won't it accelerate? It's because you got to change this one. Now that's an original Mercedes one. I don't like the original Mercedes ones because you can't see into them. I like to use, where is it? These aftermarket, these are made by Hengst. That's a German company. But see, you can see through it. And you can see when that little filter in there starts getting clogged. It'll be like caked up and totally black. You're like, hey, I might want to change that now. But all you need to do, there's a little Phillips head right there and a Phillips head right there. So you get a little stubby wrench, you pull your lines off, and you pop this one right back in place. So let's go ahead and do that now. All you do is just a band clamp around the hose. Just get your little stubby, use one of these. See, it's a short one so you can get in here. We'll unscrew that side, and then we'll come over here and unscrew this side. You don't pull out that side, and it's okay if diesel goes everywhere. That's just how it is. There we go. We just take our old one, throw it on the ground, and we pop our new one. Okay, we got that guy in place. Got it already filled up with diesel because there's some pressure in the tank, so that's good. All right, guys, and what you're left with there, and we're going to wipe all the diesel off. It's a messy job to do that, but see, now you can see your filter right inside there. You can see when it gets dirty. So let me go ahead and wipe all that diesel off of there, and then we're ready to fire up the car. Oh, we got to put our air cleaner back on first, and then we'll fire up the vehicle and make sure we have no air bubbles in the system. All right, now we're going to put the air filter housing back in place. And so see how this looks? See, we have our tube right here. Here's the turbo intake right here. I'll feel the turbo. The turbo is very tight. There's no play in the shaft, which is excellent. So you just put this tube over the end of that tube. There we go. And you slide it forward. And what you're looking to do, there's a drain tube. This tube goes all the way through and comes out the bottom. So you want to make sure the drain tube on the bottom lines up with the drain tube on the engine. Here we go. All right, that's lined up. And then see the little stud right there that just poked through? That's our bushing. You can see there's one right there. See how they just poked through, one there and one there? And then you can put your nut and washer back on there. Now we'll put our fresh air cleaner in there. Here we go. Brand new air cleaner. Then we're going to pop our lid on here, and you see the lid has a hole here. It matches up with the drain tube right there. We put our washer and our 10mm nut. Then we reattach the breather tube. Now this breather tube is just plastic, and it attaches to these rubber grommets right here, here, and here. Sometimes they'll pop out and pop loose. Tighten this down. Right here, see we need to attach our accordion tube. There we go. So you can see the part number right there. Now you got to get your screwdriver and tighten the strap. There you go, you can barely see the bolt right there. So I sometimes reach around on the other side of it to hold the strap still while I tighten it down. The fresh transmission fluid. There you go. See that bright red transmission fluid? That means it's fresh and good. They'll turn brown when they get old and used, and I recommend changing that, you know, every 30,000 miles or so. You can go longer than that, not really a big deal, but I kind of do every 30,000 miles, something like that. But that's a fully serviced engine, transmission, valve adjustment, air cleaner housing, bushings, power steering fluid. There we go. Filter. Sorry, I don't know if that was in the video either. Fresh brake fluid, oil filter. All right, guys, what we're doing now is servicing the cooling system. And you can see I have the thermostat out. And here's actually our replacement thermostat that's going in. And we've also flushed out and drained the system. It's still dripping a little down here. There we go. It's still dripping in there. There's a bunch of oil mixed in with that because that's my oil catch can. So don't worry, that's not the color of the coolant. But we're letting that drain out. And we can see the original bolts that were taken out. See, they have the, you know, those are old, original, and they have a little bit of corrosion on there. So I'm going to reinstall some nice stainless steel bolts into the housing. It only takes 3 to hold the thermostat in there. And I put a little Loctite, anti-seize, so those will never corrode and they can come out easily, you know, next time, a decade from now, when this is changed or whatever. So we're going to go ahead and put those fresh ones in there and button up our new thermostat and then refill with the correct, this is the stuff I like to use, Zurex. It's that gold colored stuff. That's the good Mercedes-Benz stuff. And we'll go ahead and get this system filled back up. The little disc side of it, that actually goes into the engine. and we have our new gasket around the edges of it. So we just set this down in here like that and pop it up to the engine, and I'm just going to get, doesn't take much, guys. That's it. All right, guys, there is our radiator drain plug. So before you put in new coolant, you want to go ahead and screw this guy back in. All right, guys, so you fill it up through the overflow tank, and these systems are self-bleeding. So once you get it full, you crank it up and you get the engine temperature up. You get it up to temp so the new thermostat opens, and then you just leave the cap off the overflow tank and it'll bubble. All the bubbles will come out. Sometimes it helps to put the front tires a little higher than the rear, you know, raise the front of the car. But you can do it on level ground too. All right, guys, what we're doing now is draining the tank. And the reason is, you see right here. So this line, that is our fuel send line. And right up here in the tank is a mesh screen filter. So we just want to check that filter and make sure there's no gunk or, you know, just old diesel gunk buildup on it. If we need to replace it, we will. Otherwise, we just insert it back into the tank. We just want to inspect the condition of it. So to do that, man, it is raining hard. Anyway, we went ahead and put back in our filter. You can see where I scratched it up a little bit there on the side, putting it back in. But that filter was absolutely clean. Here's the tool that you use. This is what goes around it to screw it out. And I'm going to actually show you guys what a dirty filter looks like. Here's one that I pulled out of a junkyard car. See all the gunk? See, that's a screen behind there. Yeah, you can see the screen. But see all the gunky buildup on this screen? That is one that is starting to get clogged. It wasn't, I don't think it's clogged yet, but that's kind of where it's time to replace them. You can see where I just clipped the line on this one. But the one in this car was clean, so we put it back in. No need to change it. All right. Here we go. This last little clip, I want to demonstrate what it's like to fire up an engine after changing the filters. If you've managed to get all the air out of the filters and there's no air in the lines, it'll fire up immediately. Usually it fires up immediately, then it'll hiccup a few times as it purges a few bubbles, and then it'll get running again. So let me show you guys that. Guys, look how smooth that engine is. There is not even the slightest bit of vibration. And notice it fired right up. That's because we filled up those fuel filters really well before replacing it. And look how smooth that is. That is an incredibly good condition engine. Now in the video, sometimes that air cleaner will show up funny, like it's slowly rotating. That's just like the frames per second, how it picks that thing up. There's always a slight vibration on, yeah, I'm looking at it through the camera now, and it looks like it's moving real slowly, but it's actually not doing that. It's actually vibrating from the, that's what those mounts are for. And you can see, let's check our fuel filters. Here we go. You see there's no leaking down here on our fuel filters, and there's no leaking from the cap of our main filter. What you also want to do is check around your new valve cover gasket. You want to look for any leaks. There's no leaks over here. There's There's no leaks from the front of the engine. We look down the side there, no leaks there. And a common place to get a leak is back here behind the engine. There you go. We are good, you guys. Man, look how smooth that engine is. That is a finely tuned valve adjustment, smooth running 617. Watch how smooth this is, guys. That is awesome. Hope you enjoyed it. See you next time.